Hi, and welcome back to David Pattinson's Accused Friends. I want to do an update on the Simon Dolan case, which encountered a very interesting intervention yesterday via the Speaker of the House of Commons, Lindsay Hoyle. And I want to just quickly read you, what the intervention entails and then explain why I think it's a really interesting development. So it says here, Lindsay Hoyle has applied to intervene in a legal fight brought by Simon Dolan and Cripps Group against the government's lockdown restrictions. The Speaker of the House says he will intervene in the case because it raises issues of constitutional importance. Yes, it most certainly does. Through his legal counsel, the Speaker has expressed concern that when the court examines this aspect of the claim, it could breach parliamentary privilege, which is enshrined in Article 9 of the English Bill of Rights, signed by King William of Orange in 1689. The Speaker's counsel has stated that if that happened, it would amount to an attack on the ability of each House of Parliament to determine when and how to exercise its functions in scrutinising legislation subject to the time limits imposed by statutory provisions. So this is very, very interesting, because it shows us that this is the first time since the lockdown began that any member of the government or the media that I'm aware of has even breathed the reference to the English Bill of Rights. I've been talking about the English Bill of Rights since the unlawful lockdown began. Everyone from the government has not mentioned it. No one from the media has mentioned it, because if they did, it would highlight to the British people how all their rights are being violated by the government. However, Lindsay Hoyle's come out and has said that the area of parliamentary privilege in Article 9 of the English Bill of Rights is being violated, or that this lawsuit by Simon Dolan would basically expose that it's being violated. But my argument is, why do we just focus on Article 9 of the English Bill of Rights? Why don't we focus on the whole thing? Why are we just cherry-picking parts of the English Bill of Rights that we like and ignoring the parts that we don't like? Surely it's all or nothing. And I think it's totally outrageous that we have a Speaker of the House that wants to nitpick parts of the Bill of Rights that suit Parliament, which I am in favour of, but ignore all the rights of British citizens that are being flagrantly violated. Well, David, what kind of rights are being violated by the lockdowns? I mean, the English Bill of Rights clearly says no cruel and unusual punishments must be meted out onto the British people. Does anyone think lockdown is not a cruel and unusual punishment? Does anyone think compulsory face masks are not a cruel and unusual punishment? It also says no endless bail. So you cannot be held without charge. You cannot be placed under arrest or house arrest without charge. I mean, how many British people are under house arrest right now without charge, without awaiting a trial date? In total violation of the English Bill of Rights. What about unlawful searches and seizures? Does Lindsay Hoyle not think track and trace is an unlawful search and seizure of your personal data rights? What about freedom of speech? What about the right to protest? Does Lindsay Hoyle not think that the anti-lockdown protests that are absolutely trashed by the media, that are interfered with by the police, where people like Piers Corbyn are placed under arrest repeatedly or fined £10,000, are not a total blatant violation of the English Bill of Rights? And let's just remember, this guy is only in the position he's in because his daughter died. And I don't say that to be crass, I just say it to point out that it's symptomatic of how we're not tough as a country. If we were tough, we'd say it doesn't matter if your daughter died or didn't die. We want the best person in the Speaker's role that is qualified for that role, that understands that the English Bill of Rights needs to be applied in its entirety, not just the part that supports Parliament. And also the reason that Lindsay Hoyle is in the Speaker's role is because the previous Speaker, Bercow, was such a partisan. Part of the Speaker's role is to be impartial, and Bercow was the opposite of that. And the message and the lesson that I learned from all these sorts of interventions by members of the establishment, and that's what Lindsay Hoyle is. is a card-carrying member of the establishment. And the reason these people are in positions of high responsibility is not that they are there to prevent government criminality. It is that because they are there to facilitate and cover up government criminality, and that is what Lindsay Hoyle is doing. However, let's look at the response from Simon Dolan. Let's see what he says. Simon Dolan said, "It's ironic that the Speaker is now getting involved in this case. The whole reason we are fighting the government in court is because Parliament was not given a chance to scrutinise the latest lockdown restrictions. Hoyle even stated himself that was unacceptable. Yet his intervention is all about the narrow issue of protecting parliamentary privilege." That's right, and that is important. But what about the privileges of the British people? Ignored. "Rather than promoting the proper scrutiny of important legislation. But his intervention shows how important our legal fight is and how seriously it is being taken. The government could have decided to have the laws looked at and approved if it wished. It hasn't tried to do so deliberately because it does not want Parliament involved. Hiding behind the notion that its lockdown laws are too urgent to be subject to scrutiny by Parliament is wrong." And it's exactly right. But I mean, you know, the government is only going to do what it can get away with. It was the Parliament that pushed through all these lockdown rules. People like Steve Baker coming out saying, "I really stand up in support of the protesters against lockdown," but not saying that he was one of the people that voted it through, and he was like, had tears in his eyes and all this kind of nonsense. These people just take no accountability. It was under Lindsay Hoyle's speakership that the the entire Parliament raised the white flag to the government. So if Lindsay Hoyle is complaining about the fact that parliamentary privilege is being respected, it's not Simon Dolan that's not respecting it, it's the Parliament that's not respecting themselves under his speakership. So this guy needs to go, he needs to totally resign, he is not qualified for the job, and every single member of Parliament needs to be reminded that the English Bill of Rights is totally relevant, but it's relevant in its entirety. It is not just relevant in the part that supports parliamentary privilege. So I want Simon Dolan, once he sees this video, to really ram this point through. And anyone who watches this, let's hammer this point home. Why do we just reference and enforce one part of the English Bill of Rights and yet ignore all the violations that are occurring to the British people right now? It's a total disgrace. And, I hope people start talking about the English Bill of Rights much more. I know no one in the media will. I know no one in the government will. But we, the British people, can and should talk about it whenever we want. And we need to emphasise it. We need to get it up in public places so that every single member of our country is totally educated on what our rights are and can speak out the minute they are being abused. So thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon.